Dear students, I welcome you to this lecture. It is all about creating a healthy acceptance of self. The objectives of the lecture are to understand the concept of self-acceptance, to know about the importance of self-acceptance, to know about the ways for healthy acceptance of self, to understand how to balance the desire for self-acceptance versus self-improvement, to understand self-acceptance from a positive psychological perspective. Self-acceptance, be it the book on becoming a person written by Rogers, be it Rogers' concept of fully functioning person, be it the Rogerian concept of ideal self-congruence, self-efficacy, empathy, be it the humanist psychologist Maslow, who found that the self-actualized people had some distinct characteristics like they are open to experience, in tune with themselves, and they resisted conformity to culture, be it his big experiences concept, be it Kelly, who said that every child is a scientist developing and testing his own hypothesis, be it Cooley's looking glass self-theory, be it Alport's concept of proprium, all in one way or the other have highlighted the importance of self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is defined as an individual's acceptance of all of his/her attributes, positive or negative. It includes body acceptance, self-protection from negative criticism, and believing in one's capacities. Hence, self-acceptance includes, first, the awareness of one's strengths and weaknesses. Second, the realistic appraisal of one's talents, capabilities, and general worth, and feelings of satisfaction with one's self despite deficiencies and regardless of past behaviors and choices. According to Shepard, self-acceptance is an individual satisfaction or happiness with oneself and is thought to be necessary for good mental health. Self-acceptance involves self-understanding of one's strengths and weaknesses. It results in an individual's feeling about oneself that they are of unique worth. Self-acceptance is a major hallmark of well-being and stability. It is a process of seeing and embracing unconditionally who you are as a person, regardless of your flaws and mistakes. The opposite of acceptance are those toxic voices of blame, doubt, regret, judgment, and shame which are manufactured by your inner critic. They take a heavy toll on your mental health. This inner critic weakens you if you are not up to stand out, hassles you about your flaws, and continually checks on and threatens you with rejection if you are not aligned with the social norms. It makes you feel shame and stops you from being the free and authentic you. Self-acceptance is the antidote to this inner critique and is therefore your gateway to inner peace. The importance of self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is the satisfaction or contentment with yourself and your status, and it is a fundamental pillar of mental health, well-being, and integrity. It consists of a realistic understanding and appreciation of one's strengths and weaknesses. Someone who has developed self-acceptance recognizes his or her unique worth and has a passionate attitude towards him or her. These people know their limits, but they are not held back by irrational limiting beliefs. A person who scores high on self-acceptance has a positive self-attitude, acknowledges and accepts all aspects of themselves, including the good and bad. He or she is not self-critical or confused about their identity and does not wish they were any different from who they already are. There are many who struggle with self-acceptance and aren't able to love, accept and forgive themselves. In fact, self-acceptance is needed to be happy with who you are in life. Self-acceptance means to forgive yourself for not being perfect. It is to be good to yourself and do things that inspire you and to love yourself. Despite all the things you think may be wrong with you, you are still able to love yourself. Life would be more difficult if you are not willing to accept yourself for who you are. You could become unhappy, have no trust in yourself, or become a victim. Happiness and self-acceptance go hand in hand. Your level of self-acceptance determines your level of happiness. You enjoy as much happiness as you believe you are worthy of. Acknowledging the value within ourselves and who we truly are is challenging, but the reward outweighs the challenges. Achieving self-acceptance is wonderfully liberating and lead to dozens of major permanent changes in one's personality. Learning to truly accept oneself, flaws and all, makes one happier, more assertive and more relaxed and confident in every situation. Self-acceptance frees the mind from feelings of inadequacy and the self-blaming thoughts that lie at the heart of many experiences with anxiety, depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, personality disorders, and many others. Self-esteem versus self-acceptance. Although self-esteem and self-acceptance are related, self-acceptance is not the same as self-esteem. Whereas self-esteem refers specifically to how valuable or worthwhile we see ourselves, self-acceptance refers to a far more global affirmation of self. When we are self-accepting, we are able to embrace all facets of ourselves, not just the positive, more estimable parts. As such, self-acceptance is unconditional, free of any qualification. We can recognize our weaknesses and limitations, but this awareness in no way interferes with our ability to fully accept ourselves. Unconditional self-acceptance. In rational emotive behavioral therapy, self-acceptance is defined as accepting oneself unconditionally, regardless of whether person behaves competently or correctly and whether other people are likely to express approval or respect. Unconditional acceptance of oneself as a protective factor prevents the onset of certain forms of psychopathology in contact with negative life situations. As said, the person is accepting him or herself fully and unconditionally, regardless of whether they behave intelligently, correctly, or as competent, and whether people approve of, respect him or her, or love him or her. Studies do show that if the individual uses this way of evaluating him or herself in the everyday life, this way of thinking can be a protective factor during the life stress events. The emotional and physical consequences of low self-acceptance. Without self-acceptance, your psychological well-being can suffer. Practicing mindfulness can help many people reduce the impact of stress, but when you cannot accept yourself, it becomes less effective. If you suffer from any physical illness, not accepting yourself can make you more anxious about your body. In this context, your automatic negative thoughts increase. In addition, if you feel negatively about yourself, the brain regions that help you control emotions and stress have less gray matter than someone with a greater degree of self-acceptance. That is, these regions actually have less tissue to work with. This lack of gray matter may also appear in regions of the brain system that process stress and anxiety. Stress signals from these later regions in turn disrupt the emotional control regions. It is clear that poor self-acceptance may disrupt emotional control in two ways: directly by disrupting the brain regions that control it, and also indirectly by increasing stress signals in your brain that subsequently disrupt these regions. Ways to healthy acceptance of self. These include self-regulation, self-awareness, self-transcendence. Self-regulation. Self-regulation consists suppressing negative emotions such as self-hatred, refocusing on the positive aspects of yourself, and reframing negative situations so that you see the opportunities in them. For example, looking for ways in which negative criticism can help you grow constitutes reframing. However, self-control may be less powerful than we think. The lack of self-acceptance can be deeply unconscious. That is, it can exist at a level beyond our conscious control. Also, when you do not accept or forgive yourself, you are still separate from yourself. You do not feel together. Both of these parts, the one that needs to forgive and the one that needs to be forgiven, are at odds with each other. In this situation, self-transcendence can be helpful. Self-awareness means acknowledging and experiencing your emotions as well as intellectually understanding yourself. To transform self-awareness into self-acceptance, one must relate to himself in a compassionate manner, feeling sympathetic to his own struggles. There are many ways to increase your compassionate self-awareness, but the good way to get started is with just increasing your self-awareness, even if that awareness includes self-critical thoughts and negative feelings. If you have been unhappy with many relationships or know you have relationship issues, compassionate self-awareness can be a great place to begin. You can see how you have unconsciously sabotaged previous efforts to connect with other people. Most importantly, you can also learn to relate more positively to yourself and others, giving you a reassuring and nurturing sense of connection with the world around you. Self-transcendence. When you are self-transcendent, you rely less on things outside of yourself to define you. Instead, you turn to an unforced sense of connectedness with the world. You can achieve this by contributing to work, family, or the community at large. The goal is to seek unity with some system in a way that is heartfelt and authentic. According to Franklin, the pursuit of self-transcendence offers the most promising path to live a life of virtue, happiness, and meaning. This way of life not only develops our character strengths and virtue, but also increases our capacity for healing and flourishing. Psychologists believe that self-transcendence serves as a value orientation that guides people's decisions and activities towards benevolence and universalism. Benevolence means being kind towards others or loving those close to you. Universalism means having a global perspective or seeing oneself as being connected with the universe or nature. Franklin conceptualizes self-transcendence as a primary spiritual motivation that stems from our spiritual nature. It seeks to express itself through our striving towards something greater than ourselves. Self-transcendence represents our spiritual need to be connected with others and with a higher power. It represents our better angels to caring for others or serving a cause greater than ourselves. Meditation as a path to self-acceptance. Self-acceptance can also be achieved by two kinds of meditation: mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. Mindful attention to emotions involves not judging but observing your emotions when they arise. This can lower your brain's emotional response to anxiety and distress. It effectively calms down your amygdala. Having more compassion toward yourself appears to be helpful in increasing self-acceptance. Loving kindness meditation can help you achieve this state by changing the activity in regions of the brain that perceive and process emotions. For example, people previously numb to praise may be able to become more accepting of it. It is also associated with greater connectivity within the brain. This makes sense as lack of self-acceptance has been associated with excessive right hemisphere activity in the brain. Loving kindness meditation provides a potential way to correct this imbalance. Other suggestions to improve self-acceptance. First, you need to accept yourself. Acceptance is the ability to unconditionally value all parts of who you are. That means you acknowledge all of yourself, the good and the things that need improvement. For most of us, self-acceptance can be hard. We tend to be critical of ourselves, but there are a number of ways to learn to accept yourself and your life. It all begins with your state of mind. Next, you need to acknowledge your reality. Sometimes facing reality isn't the easiest thing to do, but accepting your current situation can make you happier in the present and lead to a better future. Understanding, accepting, and working with the reality is both practical and purposeful. Acknowledging your reality will help you choose your dreams wisely and then help you achieve them. Then there is third one, practice radical honesty. When you can admit your own present, you can begin to powerfully create a new future. Denying your current reality, especially if it is a bad one, will not make it go away. Dealing with the bad stuff is a way to get to the good setup, but it takes practice. Identify your path. To fully accept your reality, it is important to acknowledge any role you may have played, good or bad, in getting where you are. Ask yourself questions related to your current situation to help work towards solutions. To fully accept your reality, it is important to identify what you may have done to foster success or failure. Once you know what you are dealing with, you can work toward the best next steps. You will have to admit your mistakes. Remember that you can't fix anything until you admit there is a problem. Try to view your mistakes not as failures but as learning opportunities, and have the strength within to realize you control your reality and you are the only one who can change it. Decide what is important to you and set your mind to it. Next one, you need to own your outcomes. Owning all your outcomes can help teach you to do better next time, to see failure as a learning moment. To err becomes a stepping stone. Don't let fear get in your way. Don't let fears, especially fears of what others think of you, stand in your way. You must be willing to do things in the unique and different ways you think are best and to reflect on any feedback you receive. Count on your competencies. It becomes often easy to look in the mirror and point out all your insecurities. But to face your reality, it is best to start counting all positives. Make a list of your strengths, the things you are good at, the values that you hold, and the accomplishments you have achieved. Counting on your competences help you realize your strengths, which in turn will help you improve your attitude towards yourself. Let go of your biases. Don't get caught up in the life you think you are supposed to have, but work on creating the reality you are meant to live. Your biases can blind you to almost any reality. Try to ignore them, but closing your eyes won't make them disappear. Instead, learn to understand them and let them go. Accept that struggle will always be part of our reality. Don't shy away from challenges, but go through the struggle and get comfortable with operating and living there. Struggles are a part of life, and we have to learn to confront them. It often happens the most challenging things hold the greatest opportunity for success. Make a plan for reaching your goal. Include steps you will take to create a new reality. Break your goal into meaningful small steps that you can accomplish one at a time to build your confidence and self-worth as you go. Your new reality can begin to happen once you have a plan with specific goals. Always remember, you will never be able to create the right reality if you aren't willing to let the wrong reality go. Some experts have highlighted many other ways, like consider the struggles and challenges that you face as part of a human experience. All human beings are suffering with uncertainty, the meaning of life, wanting to feel loved and good enough, and parts of their personality or person that they wish were different. It can be very comforting to be reminded that you are not the only one. Take small steps to practice being your true self. Notice where you are making choices and living your life from a place of should. By listening to and acting on your own internal preferences, needs, and wants, you strengthen your sense of self and your boundary. Although scary to start, it feels good to be who we are. Being authentic in our lives creates opportunities to receive positive reinforcement for being ourselves, and we attract those that appreciate those qualities, which in turn help us develop self-acceptance. Seize the quest for perfection while continuing with your effort. If you are relying on being perfect in some way as proof of your worth, you will never get there. Be contented with your accomplishments and achievements. Often we are too quick to jump to the next thing, which means we are never truly impacted by our efforts. never deeply acknowledge our good work, and we miss out on the positive affirmation. Another thing, you need to avoid comparison. It is impossible to embody and have all of that which we admire or appreciate in others, and it diminishes the value of the treasured qualities you have as a person. Variety is essential, and your unique self has a necessary and valued place in the tapestry of humanity. Practice gratitude for the self. At the end of the day, contemplate your efforts, achievements, and joyful moments. The mind, for evolutionary purposes, is geared to paying attention to the negative aspects and events of our lives while quickly letting go of the opposite. If you feel you don't have many positive qualities, successes, or experiences, it is likely to be the bias of the mind and is an opportunity for you to train your attention towards the blessings. How to balance the desire for self-acceptance versus self-improvement? Personal growth is full of paradoxes. One of the biggest is the tension between self-acceptance versus self-improvement that we experience regularly. We want to be the best version of ourselves and also want to be okay with the way we are right now. We want a better, brighter future full of dreams, aspirations, and goals. And we also want to feel happy with what we have in the present. So, how do we make peace with these two things? How do we balance the desire for self-acceptance versus self-improvement? This way of thinking is having its root in the belief we are not enough as we are. As Nathaniel Brandon says in The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, if my aim is to prove I am enough, the project goes on to infinity because the battle was already lost on the day I conceded the issue was debatable. On the other hand, if we focus only on self-acceptance, we deny a very important and natural part of ourselves that longs for growth. Several psychologists have discussed the drive for self-actualization, including Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers. And it is a natural, healthy desire to have. As humans, we are always evolving, both as a species and as individuals. Rather than turning this desire for growth into a problem, we need to explore how to integrate these two aspects of our being and use them to our benefit. Because we can integrate them, and doing so is a beautiful foundation for healthy, intrinsically motivated ambition and growth. Self-acceptance versus self-improvement is a false dichotomy. In fact, the two things are symbiotic. We need to accept where we are right now to grow. This doesn't mean liking where we are, but acknowledging the reality of what is the good and the bad. Nor does accepting ourselves mean whitewashing our current situations. It means, number one, acknowledging there might be a certain things about ourselves we would like to change or improve. Next one, exploring the things we struggle to accept and approaching them with curiosity and an open mind. Next one, accepting our overall desire to grow. Relation to positive psychology. With respect to positive psychology, self-acceptance as a component of eudaimonic well-being is an indicator and a measure of psychological well-being. For instance, Alfred Adler, founder of individual psychology, observed that people who thought of themselves as inferior also observed a depreciation of others. Some psychological benefits of self-acceptance include mood regulation, a decrease in depressive symptoms, and an increase in positive emotions. Other psychological benefits include a heightened sense of freedom, a decrease in fear of failure, an increase in self-worth, an increase in independence, that is autonomy, an increase in self-esteem, less desire to win the approval of others, less self-critique and more self-kindness when mistakes occur. It is more desire to live life for oneself and the ability to take more risks without worrying about the consequences. Dear students, to conclude, let us say that self-acceptance is a process of seeing and embracing unconditionally who you are as a person, regardless of your flaws and mistakes. Self-acceptance is the satisfaction or contentment with yourself and your status, and it is a fundamental pillar of mental health, well-being and integrity. It consists of a realistic understanding and appreciation of one's strengths and weakness. Someone who has developed self-acceptance recognizes his or her unique worth and has a compassionate attitude towards him or her. These people know their limits, but they are not held back by irrational limiting beliefs. Students, it was all for today. Hoping that you might have enjoyed the session. Thanks.